Imagine meeting someone online, his profile flawless, his words comforting. Now imagine that dream date spiraling into your worst nightmare, a trap so twisted it's hard to believe it's real. How did a simple search for love lead an elderly woman straight into danger? This is the story of an online romance that turned into a deadly betrayal, and you won't believe how it ended. Welcome to True Crimes Altar, where every sin is punished, every betrayal has a cost, and every soul must answer to the truth. Like, comment, and subscribe, because these are the stories the guilty prayed would stay buried. Evelyn Moore had spent most of her 67 years caring for others. First her husband Charles, who passed from a sudden heart attack a decade earlier. Then her two children, now grown with families of their own. Her days were filled with small routines, watering the roses in her garden, flipping through cookbooks she rarely used, volunteering at church on Saturdays. People around her admired her warmth, her patience, her faith. But when the sun went down and the house grew quiet, Evelyn felt the sharp ache of loneliness pressing in like a weight she could not shake. Patrice, her 44-year-old daughter, called often to check on her. She worried her mother was too isolated in the small Brookhaven house. "Mama, you need to get out more," she said one evening during a phone call. "Join one of those senior social clubs. Or go traveling. Daddy wouldn't want you sitting home by yourself." Evelyn smiled faintly at the suggestion, but she didn't say what she was truly feeling, that no amount of social clubs or casual trips could replace the intimacy of a voice meant only for her, the touch of a hand that wasn't just friendly but filled with love. Nights were the worst. She would brew tea, curl up in her favorite chair, and scroll through her phone, searching for distractions. That was how she stumbled across the ad one Tuesday night. It popped up between news stories: "Find companionship today. Love knows no age." Evelyn nearly closed it immediately. Dating apps were for young people, not for someone her age. But curiosity lingered. She clicked. Profiles filled the screen, smiling faces, carefully written bios. Some men were older, graying, looking for a nice woman to share sunsets. Others looked barely out of college, their words shallow and quick. Evelyn almost gave up until one profile stopped her cold. Damon Price, 32. Tall, clean-shaven, a warm smile that seemed to shine through the screen. His bio was short but striking, looking for a real connection. Age is just a number. I value honesty, loyalty, and heart. Evelyn laughed quietly to herself. 32? He could be her grandson. Still, there was something in his eyes, kindness, charm, that pulled at her. Against her better judgment, she typed a simple greeting, "Hello." She expected no reply. But within minutes, her phone buzzed. "Beautiful smile. You just made my day." Evelyn's heart skipped. She told herself it was silly, just harmless fun. But the conversation didn't end there. Damon asked about her evening, her hobbies, her favorite memories. His words were gentle, respectful, attentive. By the time she put her phone down that night, she felt something she hadn't in years wanted. The next evening, he messaged again. Then the night after. Soon it became routine. Every night they talked. He asked her about her garden, about Patrice, about the places she dreamed of visiting. He listened with the kind of patience and intensity she thought only existed in romance novels. Damon told her about himself too, about growing up in a rough neighborhood, about wanting more out of life than his friends who got into trouble, about trying to start a business that would prove he wasn't just another statistic. Evelyn found herself drawn deeper and deeper in. "You've been acting different lately, Mama," Patrice teased one Sunday afternoon. "You glowing? Don't tell me you've got a man." Evelyn chuckled nervously, brushing it off. "Oh, Patrice, I'm just keeping myself busy. Don't read too much into it." But inside, Evelyn felt like a young woman again. Damon started calling her queen, angel, words that made her cheeks flush. She told herself it was silly, that he was only being sweet, but she couldn't deny the thrill of hearing them. One evening, after weeks of messages and late-night calls, Damon asked if they could finally meet in person. Evelyn froze. "I don't know if that's a good idea," she said softly. What if you don't like me in person?" Damon laughed warmly. "Evelyn, I already like you. Meeting you will only make it better." She hesitated for days, torn between fear and excitement. Finally, she agreed. The morning of the date, Evelyn spent hours preparing. She ironed her favorite lavender dress, styled her hair into soft curls, and dabbed on perfume she hadn't worn in years. Her hands shook as she applied lipstick. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. When she arrived at the cafe downtown, her breath caught. Damon was already there, standing to greet her. He was taller than she imagined, broad-shouldered, with a smile that lit up the room. His photos had not lied, he was striking. He pulled out her chair, complimented her dress, and listened intently as she spoke. The other patrons barely existed. To Evelyn, it felt like the whole cafe melted away. For the first time in years, she felt beautiful. Their meetings became regular dinners at cozy restaurants, strolls in the park, coffee dates that stretched long past sunset. Damon texted her daily, often good morning and good night messages. He told her she was special, unlike anyone he had ever met. Evelyn was swept up in the magic. What she didn't notice, at least not at first, was how Damon carefully steered conversations toward money. He told her about his struggles to get his business off the ground, about being denied loans, about how the system was designed to keep men like him from succeeding. When he finally accepted her offer to help, it was small at first, a few hundred here, 1,000 there. "It's just a loan," Damon assured her, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Patrice grew suspicious when she noticed her mother's sudden withdrawals. "Mama, are you giving somebody your money? Don't play with me," she pressed. Evelyn forced a laugh, waving it off. "Don't be silly, Patrice. I know how to handle myself." But a small knot of worry was already forming deep inside her. Damon's visits began to grow inconsistent. Sometimes he disappeared for days, offering flimsy excuses when he returned. But every time, Evelyn forgave him. She wanted to believe. Then one evening, Damon called with urgency in his voice. "I need to see you tonight," he said. "There's something important I've been meaning to tell you." "It can't wait." Evelyn's heart fluttered. Perhaps he was finally going to confess his love, or maybe even propose something serious. She chose her outfit carefully, smoothing her dress in the mirror. She never imagined that this night, the one she anticipated with nervous excitement, would be the night her life unraveled completely. Evelyn drove through the quiet streets of Brookhaven that evening, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. The late summer air was warm, the sky painted orange by the setting sun. She replayed Damon's words in her head, "Something important I've been meaning to tell you," over and over, her heart racing with possibilities. Maybe he truly loved her. Maybe he wanted to move in together. Maybe after all these years, she had found someone who could fill the empty space left by her husband's death.
If you're enjoying this video, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. Share and like this video. It's free and won't cost anything, but it helps and encourages us to grow and do more. Thank you for your kindness, and back to the video.
Damon had chosen a small bistro on the edge of town, dimly lit with candles flickering in the windows. Evelyn walked in, her lavender dress swaying softly, and spotted him immediately. He stood to greet her, his smile broad, arms outstretched. "There she is," he said warmly, kissing her cheek. She flushed at the attention, the other patrons glancing their way. Over dinner, he was charming as always, but Evelyn noticed something different in his eyes, something guarded, calculating. Between sips of wine, Damon leaned in. "Evelyn, I've been thinking about us. About the future." Her breath caught. "The future?" He nodded, his tone heavy. "But there's something I need to be honest about. I've been struggling. My business is hanging on by a thread. I was denied another loan. I don't want to drag you into my problems, but it's killing me inside. You mean the world to me, but I don't feel like a man if I can't provide." Evelyn reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "Damon, you're a good man. You don't have to prove anything to me. If you need help, I can—" He shook his head, looking down. "I can't take from you, Evelyn. You've already done too much." She pressed his hand tighter. "It's not taking if I want to give." That night, she wrote him a check for $5,000. Damon kissed her with such passion afterward that Evelyn believed he was hers forever. But Patrice's suspicion grew. Weeks later, as they walked together in the garden, Patrice noticed her mother distracted, her phone lighting up constantly. "Mama, you're hiding something," she said bluntly. Patrice's eyes widened. "You're serious?" Mama, do you even know this man? Do you know what he wants from you? Evelyn bristled. He wants me. Not everyone is out to hurt me. Patrice shook her head. I don't like this. Something feels wrong. Evelyn turned away, unwilling to let her daughter shatter the fragile joy she had found. Damon's calls grew more demanding. He spoke of new opportunities, of investments that would pay off big, but only if he had money fast. Evelyn's savings account, once carefully guarded, began to dwindle. She told herself it was temporary, that Damon would pay her back when his business took off. Then came the night he asked to meet somewhere private. Not a restaurant this time, he said softly over the phone. I want just us, no distractions. I rented a place out by the lake. We can talk, we can plan, maybe even dream a little. Evelyn hesitated, her stomach fluttering with nerves. But his voice, smooth and persuasive, melted her resistance. She told Patrice she was visiting an old friend from church. Patrice didn't believe her, but she didn't push further. As Evelyn packed her bag with a shawl and a small box of jewelry Damon had once admired, she had no idea she was walking straight into a trap that had been set from the very beginning. Damon wasn't planning a future. He was planning her end. The cabin by the lake was quiet, its wooden frame casting long shadows under the moonlight. Evelyn parked her car near the edge of the gravel drive, smoothing her dress nervously before stepping out. The air was cool, the sounds of crickets filling the night. Damon emerged from the porch, his smile wide, arms open as if he had been waiting all his life for this moment. You made it, he said warmly, kissing her cheek. Come inside. I've got wine, music, everything just for us. Evelyn followed, her heart thudding with both excitement and unease. The interior was simple, too simple. A couch, a table, 2 glasses of wine already poured. She didn't notice the second man sitting in the corner, his presence blending into the shadows until Damon introduced him. This is my friend Rico. He helps me with business sometimes. Evelyn froze. She hadn't expected company. Rico was tall, muscular, his expression unreadable. He nodded at her briefly, but his eyes lingered with a weight that made her shift uncomfortably. Damon brushed it off. Don't worry, Queen. He won't stay long. They drank, talked, and for a while Damon's charm put her at ease again. But then his tone changed. Evelyn, he said, his voice lower now, you trust me, right? She nodded cautiously. Of course I do. Then you'll understand. I need more. One last push. If you can get me 20,000, I'll be set. I'll pay you back double when the deal closes. Evelyn's breath caught. Damon, I don't have that kind of money. I've already given you so much. Rico shifted in the corner, his silence menacing. Damon leaned closer, his smile gone. Don't lie to me. I've seen your accounts. You've got it. You just don't want to help me. Fear prickled at Evelyn's skin. How do you know about my accounts? Damon's gaze hardened. You left your phone open once. Don't worry, I didn't take anything, but I know what you have. Her chest tightened. The man she thought loved her was a stranger, a predator. Damon, please, she whispered. This isn't right. Rico stood now, looming over her. You heard him. Stop playing games. Evelyn's instincts screamed to leave. She rose, but Damon grabbed her wrist, his grip iron. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Sign over what I need. Tonight. She pulled away, shaking her head. No, I can't. His eyes turned cold. Then you leave me no choice. The next moments blurred, Rico moving behind her, Damon's arm tightening around her throat. Evelyn gasped, clawing at his grip, but his strength overwhelmed her. She fought, kicked, her jewelry box spilling across the floor. Damon whispered harshly in her ear, I told you not to make this hard. Her last thought was of Patrice, her daughter's worried face, the warnings she had ignored. Darkness closed in. Hours later, Damon and Rico carried her lifeless body to the trunk of a car. They drove through deserted back roads until they reached a wooded ravine. Without ceremony, they dumped her there, covering her with branches and dirt. Damon wiped his hands, his voice flat. No one will find her here. But he was wrong. Patrice called the next morning, and when Evelyn didn't answer, she drove to her mother's house. The car was gone, the bed unslept in, her purse missing. Panic clawed at Patrice's chest. She called again, then again. No answer. That evening, she filed a missing persons report. Detective Carl Brenner took the call. A seasoned officer in his 50s, Carl had seen countless missing persons cases, but something in Patrice's trembling voice told him this was different. Within hours, Detective Sean Tate, younger but sharp-eyed, joined him. Together, they began tracing Evelyn's last steps. The truth of her disappearance was buried deep, but soon the cracks in Damon's facade would begin to show. 2 days after Patrice filed the report, Brookhaven police received a call from a jogger who had noticed a foul odor near the ravine outside town. Detectives Carl Brenner and Sean Tate responded to the scene, the flashing red and blue lights cutting through the trees. As the officers combed the area, one called out. There, beneath a crude pile of branches and dirt, they uncovered Evelyn's body. The detectives stood silently for a moment, the weight of the discovery heavy in the cool morning air. Carl exhaled. She didn't just vanish. This was deliberate. Sean knelt, his eyes narrowing at the jewelry still clutched in Evelyn's stiff fingers. She fought back, he said softly. And whoever did this wanted her gone fast. Back at the station, Patrice was brought in. When she heard the news, her sobs shook the walls. I told her something was wrong. I begged her to be careful. She didn't listen, she cried. Carl placed a steady hand on her shoulder. We're going to find who did this, but we need everything you can give us about her life. Anyone knew she was seeing. Then Reese hesitated, shame mixing with grief. There was a man. Damon. Much younger. I told her it felt wrong, but she said he made her feel alive. She gave him money. Thousands, I think. The name was enough to set the investigation into motion. Within hours, Carl and Sean traced Evelyn's bank activity. Large withdrawals, sudden transfers. Surveillance from the cafe where she'd first met Damon confirmed his identity. His profile on the dating app matched Patrice's description exactly. Damon Price, 32, no stable job, claims of running a business but no records of one. The detectives paid him a visit at his small apartment on the east side. Damon answered the door with a practiced smile, but Sean immediately noticed the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes flicked nervously. "Detectives, what can I do for you?" he asked. Carl's voice was calm but firm. "We're investigating the disappearance of Evelyn Moore. She's missing?" I had no idea. His performance was smooth, but the detectives weren't convinced. They asked when he had last seen her. Damon claimed it had been weeks. But when they left, Sean said what both were thinking. He's lying. I can feel it. The break came when Rico Johnson's name surfaced. An anonymous tip placed Damon with Rico the night Evelyn vanished, at a cabin by the lake. Detectives obtained a warrant and searched Damon's apartment. Inside, they found Evelyn's jewelry box tucked inside his dresser, her initials engraved clearly on the lid. There was no denying it now. Damon was taken into custody. In the interrogation room, Damon kept his cool at first, insisting Evelyn had given him the jewelry as a gift, but when Carl slid crime scene photos across the table, his composure cracked. His hands shook, his voice dropped. I didn't mean for it to happen like that. She wouldn't help anymore. She said she was done. Rico pushed me, said I was being soft. I snapped. His words tumbled out, half confession, half excuse. Meanwhile, Rico was arrested across town. Unlike Damon, he offered no explanation, no denial. He simply shrugged and said, "You got what you need. Do what you gotta do." The case against them was strong. Evelyn's phone records, Damon's financial trail, the recovered jewelry, and his partial confession painted a damning picture. But Patrice still had to face the hardest part, identifying her mother's body at the morgue. She clutched the detective's arm as she whispered through tears, "That's her. That's my mama." The community reeled at the news. Headlines read, "Online romance ends in murder." At church, Evelyn was remembered as kind, trusting, too gentle for the cruelty she had faced. Patrice, standing before the congregation, swore through her tears that she would see justice done. The trial was set. Prosecutor Alicia Kent built her case around Damon's greed and manipulation, painting him as a predator who preyed on Evelyn's loneliness. Defense attorney Martin Lowe argued it was an accident, a crime of passion pushed by Rico's influence. But the evidence was unshakable. Detective Sean Tate testified about Damon's lies, while Carl Brenner described finding Evelyn's body. Beatrice took the stand, her voice breaking as she described her mother's excitement over Damon, how she'd warned her, how she'd lost her anyway. The courtroom fell silent as she sobbed, clutching a tissue in trembling hands. Damon stared at the floor throughout the trial, his once confident smile gone. Rico showed no remorse at all, leaning back as though it were just another day. When the jury finally returned, the room held its breath. Damon Price was found guilty of first-degree murder, sentenced to life without parole. Rico Johnson received the same. Patrice wept, a mix of relief and sorrow. Justice had been served, but it couldn't bring her mother back. As Damon was led away in chains, he glanced once toward Patrice. For the first time, his eyes showed fear, not for prison, but for the hollow emptiness waiting for him now that his lies and charm had burned away. Months passed after the sentencing, but the wounds in Patrice's heart did not close. She returned often to her mother's house, now quiet and still, the lavender curtains Evelyn had chosen swaying gently in the breeze. Every corner of the home held her presence, from the half-finished crossword puzzle on the coffee table to the neatly folded quilt on her favorite chair. Patrice would sit there sometimes, holding her mother's scarf, whispering the words she never got to say, "I'm sorry I couldn't save you." At church, Evelyn's name was spoken with reverence. Her community remembered her kindness, her smile, her willingness to trust. Some spoke bitterly about the dangers of online dating, others about the predators who lurk behind perfect smiles. But Patrice knew the truth was more complicated. Her mother wanted love, connection, something real in the years she had left. It was Damon's lies that turned that dream into tragedy. Behind prison walls, Damon Price struggled with the reality of his sentence. Gone was the polished charm, the expensive sneakers, the confident swagger. Inmates had no interest in his smooth words. Life without parole stretched endlessly before him, each day a reminder of the choices that had destroyed not just Evelyn's life, but his own. Rico Johnson, ever cold and detached, adjusted easily, blending into the shadows of the prison yard. For him, violence had always been a way of life. Detective Carl Brenner moved on to other cases, but the image of Evelyn's body in the ravine lingered in his memory. Sean Tate carried it too, a reminder of how easily loneliness could be exploited. For both men, it was one of those cases that stayed with them, the kind that made them hold their loved ones a little closer. Patrice, determined to honor her mother's legacy, began speaking at community events. She warned others about the dangers of online scams, about the importance of listening to instincts. Each time she stood before an audience, her voice trembled, but her words carried power. "My mother was not foolish," she would say, and someone used that against her. Slowly, the pain became purpose. Still, when Patrice drove past the cafe where her mother first met Damon, her chest tightened. She would never forget how quickly joy had turned to grief, how easily a promise of love had become a weapon. Evelyn Moore's story became a cautionary tale, a reminder that not all smiles are genuine, not all words sincere. But to those who loved her, she was more than her ending. She was a woman who gave without fear, who trusted without hesitation, who loved fully even in her final days. That was how Patrice chose to remember her. What about you? Do you think justice was served in this case, or was life without parole too light for what Damon and Rico did? Share your thoughts in the comments below, subscribe for more true crime stories, and let us know where in the world you're watching from.